Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail. I'm Doc, and this is the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Let's start off with a reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute, help us out. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, let's get to this week's guest, a long trail through hiker, author, and motivational speaker who, and I'm quoting from his website, now inspires others to have their own unlikely adventures. He helps people break stigmas, throw caution to the wind, and pursue their adventure bucket lists. Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod, Derick Lugo. How's it going, Derick?
Thank you. Thanks for the invite, man. I'm great. How are you?
I'm excited to talk to you tonight.
Let's do it.
All right. Hey, the first thing you should know is that on the podcast here, we go strictly by trail name. My driver's license or my paycheck does not have Doc on it. It's just that's my trail name. Came by that. And so I imagine with all your experience on the trail that you have picked up a trail name.
Yes. Mine is Mr. Fabulous. Okay,
and part of the reason we use trail names on the podcast is because we love to hear the stories behind the trail names. How did you come by Mr. Fabulous?
Well, first of all, I didn't name myself. Okay, because if I did name myself, it probably would have been Mr. Fabulous. So when I first started my AT through hike, I had zero experience. I'm from New York City. I didn't know anything about camping, hiking, pitching a tent, none of that stuff. I didn't even know if I liked hiking. And at the time, I was known as a New York metrosexual, where I like to stay groomed, make sure I looked on point, had like designer clothes, got my hair did, my nails done, all that stuff, just try to look proper, my younger years. And I remember going on a trail and saying, look, I know through hikers don't bathe for a long time. And I know they don't groom, they grow their beard. And I said, that's not going to be me. I'm going to make sure that wherever I am, whatever camp, whatever water source I find, I'm going to, even if it's a bird bath, I'm going to give myself a bird bath. I'm going to shave. I now grow a beard, but at the time I only had a goatee. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make sure that stays trimmed. I had like a razor blade. I was going to make sure I looked on point. I joked around that I wish I had a full length mirror I can just put in my backpack so I can pull it out and kind of like make sure everything is on point. This is all jokes, but a part of me wanted to because I wasn't a hiker, I wanted to keep a little bit of what I was about, in New York City and bring it on the trail. And the first week I was on the trail, I ran into there's a lot of hikers that start, and then I was with a group, and everyone that week, within the first week, everyone had a trail name and I didn't have one. And I told them my story about being in New York and how, I had to stay on point the way I looked and stuff like that. And then, that I didn't have any experience. And one hiker was like, man, you have no experience and you're out here for a week and you're doing all these things. They're like, you're a Mr. Fabulous. And I said, no, I am not a Mr. Fabulous. There's no way I'm going to go around calling myself that, because it sounds weird. It's like, hi there, I'm Mr. Fabulous, right? It sounds creepy. And then they're like, yeah, if you say it like that, don't say it like that. So I was really reluctant about using that trail name. And, when you get a trail name, you obviously know this. You don't have to take the first one they give you. And I was given a couple of them, like New York, because I was from New York, Marley, because I have dreadlocks. All these, I was like, I don't know about this. And then the Mr. Fabulous came up, and he was like, look, man, just use it for a few days, see if it sticks.
Try it on.
I said, okay, I'm gonna use it for a few days. And the reaction I thought I was going to get was like, hey, man, what do you think? You Mr. Fabulous, what's that about? And but it wasn't. It was more of curiosity, because I wanted a trail name that had a story behind it. And they wanted to know why and how. And I got laughter, I got smiles, and I said, okay, I'm getting comfortable with this. But I'll tell you the one story that I love sharing. where I decided I was going to keep the name. So I was hiking a couple days into my trail name, and I'm hiking alone. And there's a group of elderly hikers, maybe 10 to 12 of them, going southbound. I'm going north. I step aside. They find out I'm through hiking. They're wishing me luck, asking me questions. And the last person, she was older than the rest of them. She must have been like 200 years old. She was older than the Appalachian Trail. Like, she was old. She had a cane. She was small. She had an aide helping her. And she came up to me and she heard that I was through hiking, and she looked up and she said, so what's your trail name? And I said, ma'am, it's Mr. Fabulous. And without missing a beat, she goes, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for a Mr. Fabulous my entire life. And she reaches up, gives me a kiss on my cheek, and she storms off with like a little pep in her step. She's like twirling her cane. Her aide is chasing after her. And I'm like, what just happened here? And after that moment, I said, you know what? That's it. I'm keeping the trail name, because it's not about me. Like, I don't think I'm Mr. Fabulous. But when I share that story, the Mr. Fabulous story, it's about everyone, especially now that I have my book out and people know me for being a voice of the outdoors. Mr. Fabulous is everyone, not just me.
Okay, so we're going to go by Mr. Fabulous from this point on. And Mr. Fabulous, I have so many questions. There's a lot to unpack right there. All right. So my first question is, how long did you keep up the routine of taking care of yourself, cleaning yourself, keeping it shaved, well groomed and shaved and washed up? Did that last the entire 2,200 miles?
Good question. The weirdest thing is, now I do have a beard, but when I was on the trail for 6 months, I shaved. If I had like every 3 to 4 days, I would shave. I would make sure it was clean. People would see me on a trail, like day hikers, and they're like, this guy's not through hiking, because I'm hanging out with these other guys that are like, have beards. The women are beautiful, but they got like hairy legs, like, and they're like, there's no way you're through hiking. You just got on the trail. I'm like, no, I'm through hiking. So I kept it throughout the entire through hike. Also, with a name like Mr. Fabulous, come on, man, I had a reputation there. I had to keep that up. But I must say, and every night I made sure I had wipes. I made sure I at least wiped off the sweat off of me, or I had a bandana, I would wet it, wipe myself off. But when I got off the trail, I would say like a couple weeks off the trail, I remember not going like 3 or 4 days without taking a shower. And I'm like, where was this when I was on the trail? And then like a year later, I grew a beard, and I'm like, why am I doing it now when I could have done it on the trail? My life probably would have been a lot easier, A
lot of upkeep on the trail, and you had to live up to your trail name. So I appreciate that. Respect. Very good. Very good. Now, it seems to be also that the razor, that's extra weight. I mean, we're through hikers, they're concerned about their base weight. And it sounds like you may have had some additional items in there that helped you maintain.
Look, my pack was like 42 pounds, I think, when I first started. And I think it lightened up a little bit, but for the most part, my pack was a heavy pack. And I had the things I needed to get me through the through hike. I mean, I had just enough to get me through. I think if I had less, then who knows? But I did make a mistake where I had at one point 5 books in my backpack. The worst thing you can do, a rookie mistake. And I remember, because I'm a big reader, and people on the trail would have a book. I mean, there's Nook and like Kindles and all that, but I came with a book. And then other people had books, they finished it. And I was like, oh, that's a good, I'm that guy. If you recommend a book, I'll get it, or someone to give it to me and I'll read it. And people started giving me books, or I would find a book. And at one point I had 5 books in my backpack. And then when I decided to do the Quad State Challenge, which is a challenge, you do 4 states in 24 hours. So it's Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And you try to do it within 24 hours. And I remember my pack was the heaviest it ever was. It was like 40 something pounds, and I had the 5 books. And after I did that challenge, I was like, I was crying, dude. I was like, I'm getting rid of these books. It was like the worst. It was a lesson. And like, dude, try to lighten your pack. And to this day, I through hiked 10 years ago. And to this day, when I do a weekend hike or a long distance hike, my pack is, for some reason, I can't lighten that pack. In fact, I'm going to meet up with a friend on Sunday, and she's an ultra light hiker. And I'm not going to ever be ultra light, but she's going to guide me with what she uses. And maybe I can get some tips from that. And I've been doing this for a long, long time, but for some reason, man, I love these certain things that I feel like I need on the trail. So
yeah, Mr. Fabulous, I got a great story for you along those exact lines. I had on the podcast here, great guy. He's been on multiple times. He goes by Ginger Balls. Don't know if you've heard of him or know him, but he was in the Navy, and he retired eventually from the Navy. And towards the end of his retirement, one of his goals was he was going to do the Appalachian Trail. And so he showed up to Springer Mountain. Being a Navy guy, he was really prepared. He had 3 of everything, just in case the first 2 went dead, whatever it may be. He was ready to go, over prepared, and his pack was rivaling yours, probably even more, probably 50 pounds at least. And he shows up to Springer Mountain, and on that very first day, he meets up with Scrapbook, who is about 20 years old. And unbeknownst to Ginger Balls, Scrapbook, this is his 3rd long trail. He's already done the PCT, he's done the CDT, and the AT is going to be his Triple Crown hike. And Scrapbook has a base weight of about 13 pounds. And the funniest moment, I swear, in my mind, it's hilarious, is these 2 guys looking at each other, and each one of them thinking, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's not going to make it. Scrapbook's looking at Ginger Balls saying, oh, that's way too much weight. He's never going to make it. And Ginger Balls is looking right back at Scrapbook saying, oh, he doesn't have nearly enough. That poor kid, he's not going to survive out there. So just a funny image. It kind of demonstrates exactly what you're talking about there, with people and their different styles and different approaches. And it's not a one size fits all.
No, it's true. Like, to each his own. Like, there's people that use trail runners. There's hikers that use boots.
That's right.
Like I can't use trail runners. I need actual boots to hike with.
Okay.
But yeah, everyone hikes their own way. And the thing that I discovered on a trail that I didn't even know was a thing, that the outdoors is like an outdoor community, and everyone, they're really supportive. There's no judgment. You may think like, hey, look at this guy from New York City. He's not going to make it. They may have thought it, but they never said it to me. They were just happy that I was out there. Even on my first day, when I didn't know how to use any of my gear, they were just like helping me with the gear. They never said, dude, man, I don't know if you, cause this is stuff that I should have learned before I got on a trail years ago. But it never came out of anyone's mouth. It was just like a lot of support. And that was one of the main things that got me through the AT, was finding out how like everyone was just, it was just so different in New York. I'm from New York City, and I have that suspicious mind. Like, look, if a stranger talks to me, you want something from me. I'm checking for my wallet. I'm like, okay, where's my wallet? So, but yeah, there's different. And I was, when you're on a trail for that long, you're hanging out with people that you probably would have never hung out in real life, quote unquote, real life. And that's a beautiful thing,
Yeah, you're not going to find a more friendly and more supportive community than the outdoor community, and the thru hiking community especially.
Yes, I agree, and I say this all the time, that when you're thru hiking, well, in real life, you need that icebreaker when you meet a stranger. But when you're thru hiking, the icebreaker is already there. We're doing the same thing, and within the first day, you're friends. The next day, you're best friends, and after that, you're family.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like. Life on a trail, it speeds up whatever, your life. And then and also, since you're just doing that, there's no other distractions or anything like that, that is just easier. It's easier to be nicer, to be, just be yourself, whoever you are.
Right. I can't tell you how many guests I've had on here who have revealed that, within the first 10 minutes of meeting somebody, they're telling them their deepest, darkest secrets, things they wouldn't tell people back home that they're friends with, or that they, family or whatever, that are out there on the trail, and they are sharing some of the most personal information you can share.
Yep. True story.
Yep.
True story. I was sharing, again, everyone that in the group that I was in within a week had a trail name, but when you get a trail name, someone else gives it to you for whatever reason, either something you did, something you said, the way you look. So when you're in that situation, it's kind of intimate, you know, like you're in, sometimes it's crowded in the camps area and then your tents are really close. Or sometimes, you know, you're alone. And when you see someone, you want to be near that person. You know, there's a bunch of different emotions that go through your mind when you're on a trail. And having that person, you will never believe how much a person or people mean to you until you're out in the wilderness by yourself. Okay, because I didn't realize that, and I'm a people person before I even got on a trail. After the AT, man, I was saying I love you to everyone. You know, I love you. They're like, what? I love you.
That is great. That is great. Hey, Mr. Fabulous, we've got a section, a regular section that we do on this on the podcast. It comes towards the end of the episode. I want to give you a heads up on this. It's called the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. And at that point of the episode, I'm going to turn to you and say, Mr. Fabulous, what bit of trail wisdom can you share with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better? So I want you to be thinking about that as we go through the episode here, but don't be surprised.
I got it, man. Okay. I got it already if you want. No.
Hang on to it. Hang on to that. All right. Hey, another segment we've been doing recently has been the current event. And I leafed through some headlines today after I got home from work, and I came across one that I think you might want to weigh in on. And the headline is that rescuers find Appalachian Trail hikers stuck in waist-deep snow inside Smoky Mountains. And that comes to us from the Charlotte Observer. And so just to give you a little background on this, I guess they received in the Smokies, let me get the amount here, 20.5 inches of snow over the weekend. And they put out warnings to hikers and let them know, but this guy evidently became stuck in a ravine in waist-deep snow, and they figured that it would take 8 hours for people on foot, rescuers on foot, to get to him. So they actually sent out a helicopter and rescued this guy. And sadly to say, because I'm from Southern California, he's a California native, and he got stuck out there on the Appalachian Trail in waist-deep snow.
That's a knucklehead move right there. I'm gonna tell you right now, because. And I say this with a lot of love, but the thing is, when you're doing something like that, you have to check the weather, because not only are you putting yourself in danger, but you're putting the rescuers in danger. You know, and that's the key. I don't play around with that. Like, that happened to me on my Thru hike, not to me, but to someone I know. And I was very worried about that person. But when I found out they were okay, I was like, a little like pissed off about it. I'm like, look, man, why would you do this? Because you're not just endangering yourself. There's other people there. So I'm glad he's okay, and I'm glad they were able to get him. But the Smokies is no joke. I mentioned it in my book, The Unlikely Thru Hiker, where the weather changes really fast. And when I was there, I had a love-hate relationship with the Smokies, where I loved the views, but the terrain was kind of like tripping me. I fell a few times. The weather was cold. Like in the morning, it was like the rain was like freezing the tips of my fingers, and to pack everything up, it was horrible. So, you know, if you're a hiker, educate yourself about what you're doing. Don't just go out there and just, like, the Smokies could be very dangerous, man. Again, like I said, the weather changes really fast. So that's just a rookie mistake right there, man.
Yeah, and you bring up a very good point. You're not just endangering yourself. People are going to go out and look for you. If you are stuck, if you send out a rescue call, they're going to go look for you. And it's not just you that's now in danger. All it takes is a slip on the part of a rescuer, or a wind shear or something for a helicopter, and you have now just put those people in incredible jeopardy. So yeah, I can appreciate that sentiment.
Yeah,
all right.
Man.
Okay, hey, another feature we've been doing this season is the Must Bring Gear Review, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company Outdoor Vitals. And here's how it works, Mr. Fabulous. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you've got a particular brand for that specific piece of gear, even better. So, Mr. Fabulous, what is your must-bring piece of gear?
Without missing, like, I know exactly what it would be, because I went through something a few months ago. I would say a water filter.
Okay.
It's key. If we're doing a multi-day, a weekend hike, I would say a water filter. I through hiked the AT with a Catadine water filter, like the pump, and I had no problems. And then there's a Sawyer squeeze that everyone uses. It's super small. And I decided for a through hike that I was going to do of the long trail to change it up. So to go from the Catadine to the Sawyer, because everyone was using it. It's lighter, it's smaller. And I made a mistake where I packed it, but it didn't have a washer. Like the washer, like it. So I was trying to filter a beaver dam water, and that's the worst water you can try to filter, even with a good filter that has the washer and everything. So during the day, I wasn't drinking enough water, so I was trying to like drink as much as possible. So I'm drinking like so much unfiltered beaver dam water, and I got sick. But the key is, it wasn't the filter that failed me. It was I failed myself because I didn't check to see if it had all the parts. And again, I've been doing this a long time, but I still make mistakes. And I share this with the people that follow me, my audience. I say, hey, look, not only do I want to share my success, but also you're going to learn from when I make mistakes, because it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, you're going to make a mistake, So I would say a water filter without a doubt.
Okay. And that's what happens in these episodes, is that my guests drop pro tips throughout the episode, but that does not free you up from the responsibility of coming up with that final pro tip when we get to that section. So checking your equipment, trying it out ahead of time, great pro tip, but it's already been used up, Mr. Fabulous. You have to come up with something different towards the end. So
I got something else for you.
Okay. All right. And when we're talking about water filters, you mentioned a pump filter. You mentioned a squeeze filter. I know that there's a Life Straw out there, and also there's gravity filters. Do you have a preference on any of those four?
My experience was the pump that I love, because I felt like even in like mud, you can filter that mud out and get good water, especially when you pump. So I will stick with the Catadine, but I am going to go back to the Sawyer because I'm trying to lighten my load. So it's between the two.
All right. You got to make sure you pump out all the beaver out of that water. Otherwise you're going to be in trouble. Yeah.
All the beaver poo and all that. Because here's the thing, if you don't filter out the beaver poo, you're going to be pooing a lot yourself. So
Absolutely. Okay. Hey, another segment we do, and it's to really help me discover how crazy my guest is. This helps me with a crazy rating. And it's a segment I call the hiking pole. And it's not POLE, it's POLL. A little clever turn on words there, hiking pole. So I'm going to ask you 6 questions here and see which side you fall on. It's going to help me give you a score from 1 to 100 on the crazy scale.
Okay.
All right, here we go. First one's easy. Trekking poles. Trekking poles or no trekking poles?
Trekking poles. Yes.
Absolutely. Why?
Heavy pack. Straightforward. Heavy pack. It helps. Trekking poles do help with the balance, with getting the weight off of your back, and like tripping. Like you're gonna trip, especially if you're through hiking. You're gonna trip. If you have trekking poles, it's gonna help you stay up, and I won't be headbutting a tree or anything like that. Like trekking poles. Yes.
Yes, fair point. What do you say to those novice hikers who say, you know what, I'm going to look funny using trekking poles? I don't think that, I don't want people to laugh at me.
I don't knock anyone that doesn't. I when I through hike, there was these young cats that were doing like no trekking poles or a stick or one stick looking like, Moses or something like that. Hey, if they can do it, but they'll learn fast. And the thing about through hiking too, is eventually within a certain amount of days, you'll figure out what you need and what you don't need. And, for the most part, everyone I saw on the trail had some form of trekking poles or a stick or something. So,
okay. This next one you already answered, but we're going to have you go through it anyway. Boots or trail runners?
Boots. And
why?
My ankles roll a lot. Not a lot, but they roll. And I don't know. I just have, I have good luck with boots. Boots are really good. I never had anything go wrong with my feet. Nothing. So the boots are great. I feel with trail runners, I use them when I do day hikes, but there's no way I'm going to wear a heavy pack and be able to I don't know. I just feel like they'll bust up my feet. And again, my ankles roll, and I don't want to break them or hurt myself. So definitely boots.
Okay. Do you have a specific brand that you prefer?
Oboes.
Okay.
Oboes. They in fact, when I thru hiked with Vask, and they were great. And I got another pair after I thru hiked. But I was given a pair of Oboes, and they were a pound lighter than the ones I threw. And I was like, let me try them. And they feel so light, and they're comfortable, and they're just perfect. So I stick with Oboes. They're my peeps.
Okay. Every pound you put on your foot is like 5 on your back, is what they say.
Yep. So.
Okay. And what's the typical break-in period for your boots?
Normally takes, I don't know, if I hike with my boots for, and here's the thing, when I thru hiked the AT, I didn't break them in. So I broke them in when I thru hiked. So that wasn't a good thing. But with the Oboes, I don't need to break them in. I got a pair, thought I needed to break them in so I can do my thru hike of the long trail. And the first day I used them, they fit. Like, I didn't need to break them in. So with the Oboes, I don't need that much time, but I would say, maybe 10 miles, maybe, I don't know. I never, again, when I thru hiked, I wasn't really smart about breaking anything in. I didn't even put my pack on, the full weight of my pack on, until the day of my thru hike.
Wow. Yeah, that's high praise for the Oboes. Okay. Next question. Tent, tarp, or hammock?
Tent. And the reason why is that when I was doing a little bit of research of the AT, one of the things that stuck out was that the whole Lyme disease thing, and how you get it from ticks. And how in shelters, they talked about how ticks would hang out on plants, mice would run and rub up on them, and the ticks are on them, and then the mice would go through the shelter because of food and all that. And then I would hear screams of like people screaming because a mouse ran across their face or something, and people, were getting. I can't tell you how many people got Lyme disease on the trail the season that I thru hiked. So. The biggest fear I had, it wasn't the wilderness, it wasn't bears, it wasn't people, it was the little critter, the tick. So I decided I'm never going to sleep in a shelter, and the tent is where I'm going to live while I'm thru hiking. So, and it was perfect. Again, I had no experience, and I just felt safe in my tent.
It all comes down to the bugs when you ask that tent, tarp, or hammock question. Absolutely.
Word.
And some people's biggest fears are pooping in the woods.
Oh, I'm okay with pooping in the woods. I'm okay. So, because the key for me in life is to be regular. Like, you got to be regular, and I'm so regular, it's irregular. So when it came time to poop, I didn't care where I pooped. The first time I pooped in the woods, it was in a privy. I was like, what in the world? I'm from New York City. And then pooping outside. Yeah, that was weird, the beginning of it. But then after that, now I'm like, look, if I got to go, I don't care where it is, I'm going to go.
Yeah. Best views, best bathroom views ever. Right.
Word.
That's right. All right. Hey, sleeping bag or quilt?
Sleeping bag. I like to stay warm when I'm when I'm sleeping in a tent. So yes, sleeping bag.
Okay. Are you a back sleeper or a side sleeper?
I do both. And sometimes I toss and turn. So, but yeah, I do both. I won't wake up. Here's the funny thing. I'll try to sleep on my back, and then I'll wake up and I'm like off my pad, and I'm like just all over the place. So I move a lot when I sleep.
Yeah, I'm a side sleeper, and I found that the quilt helps me out with, I'm not so constricted because I kind of spread out a little bit on my side there. And I'm kind of the opposite of you because I start out on my side, always side or stomach. And I always wake up in the morning on my back.
Interesting.
So, yeah. All right. And this is the key question of the 6. This is number 5 here. Stove, cold soak, or stoveless?
Stove.
Okay. All right.
When I thru hiked, I did the alcohol stove, and now I use jet boil. But yes, I do stove. I I feel like I answer these questions and I'm nowhere to being crazy. So,
well, yeah, cold soak automatically you lose 15 points. So, I mean, you
okay.
stove is a solid answer. Solid answer. All right. And then last question on the hiking poll, long trails, they should be hiked northbound or southbound?
See, I'm going to answer northbound, but I'm also going to say that it doesn't, like to each his own, like hike your own hike, like they say. And I don't judge, but I will say when I through hike the AT, a lot of, everyone's going northbound, but when I would see a Sobo, someone going southbound, they were like celebrities to me. Although we're both through hiking, it was like, man, you're doing it in a different temperature, you're doing this. And I feel like going Sobo, or I know going Sobo, there isn't a lot of people, so it's pretty secluded. And I like being around people. I love people. I say that I can camp, I can hike alone or with someone, but when it comes to camping, I need people around me. I want people around me. So I'm sticking with Nobo, northbound.
Okay. So your score on the crazy scale is a solid, respectable 74. And that's because as a long trail hiker, a through hiker, you lose 20 points automatically because you have to be somewhat crazy to do that. And so 74, good score.
I love that. Yeah, you have to be a little nutty, I think about that sometimes, like what made me want to do that, but hey, it's the best thing. In fact, and people say this all the time. They said this for through hikes, it's going to change your life. And it did. It changed my career path. It changed who I am now, what I do. Like, yeah, it impacted my life.
All right. Hey, what do you do currently to pay the bills and fund your adventures?
I do a lot of talks, a lot of writing projects. I get sponsors to do certain hikes and all that. But yeah, ultimately rely on my talks.
Okay. Fantastic. Now, before we go to break, our first break here, let's back up a little bit before we get too far down the trail. Let's hear about your background, where you grew up, what kinds of sports and hobbies you were involved in as a youth, and how did you get involved in the outdoor adventure life?
So yeah, I'm from New York City. I lived in Philly for a while, but New York is basically my life, the city life. I was really into basketball. I'm not the tallest dude, but I love the basketball. And I love watching sports and playing any sport I can. As far as hobbies, I was huge I'm an artist. I was drawing a lot. That was my way at the time of sharing my stories, because I found out as I got older that I was pretty good at telling stories, and that stems from me being younger and talking my way out of trouble, and there's times when I was on a trail, I obviously was telling a fib, but I would stretch the story just to make it interesting. And people were just like watching me like, wow, where's he going with this? And I was like, you know what? I got a gift. So that's it. It started off with doing art and sharing it with people and all that. And then it went into, writing and doing poetry, which I'm not great at, but sketching and all that. So yeah, that was where I was at. It was just the New York life. The outdoors was Central Park, going to Yankee Stadium, the beach, Coney Island. But that was my outdoor thing. But luckily, I fell in love with reading at a young age. And someone, I don't know, maybe it was like 15, 20 years ago, gave me a book. And it was A Walk in the Woods. They said, they didn't even mention it had anything to do with the AT. They just said, this is a funny book, and I think you would really, really like this. And they gave me the book. I read it. It was hilarious. But the one thing that stuck out was this trail that he made sound so hard. And I said, man, and at the time, challenges were huge for me. And I wanted to do a bunch of things. And like I said, I'm a storyteller, and I wanted to have more experiences, so I would have stories instead of reading about these adventures and these stories. So hiking the AT was like a pipe dream for me, where I like wanting to run a marathon or travel around the world, or hike the Appalachian Trail was something that I thought maybe I would do, but I didn't think I was ever going to. And then one thing led to another. I had enough time, to spare. I was in between jobs. I sublet my apartment, and I said, you know what? I think I'm gonna do the AT. And within a week and a half, 2 weeks of deciding to do the AT, I was on the trail.
And let's put a pin in it right there, because I want to go back to that when we come back from the break about your decision and ending up down at Springer Mountain and starting the AT. Before we go to break, I'm always curious to find out from my long trail hikers when you first realized that there was a trail that stretched 2,200 miles long, in this case from Georgia to Maine. In other cases, if you heard about the PCT or the CDT trails that go from Mexico to Canada, and you realize that was a thing, that you could put foot to path all the way from Georgia to Maine. And what was your reaction to that
I
moment?
thought it was when I was reading it, I thought it was the most amazing thing ever. I said, what? There is a such thing as, because just think about it. There's a connection from the South, from Georgia, all the way to Maine. And I don't need a car. I don't need anyone to help me with it. I do it myself. I thought it was the most amazing thing. And that's why I think years went by before it popped in my head again, because it stayed in there. And I was like, I may even wrote it down like something I would want to do in my life, you know, and it just stuck with me. It was just one of those things. And some people love a walk in the woods. Others are like, well, you know, he didn't really through hike and they don't love whatever. But the one thing, it's hilarious. But the one thing is that people are drawn to the AT because of that book. And I remember when I was writing my book, I said, I'm going to go a different route than a walk in the woods. It's going to be hilarious, but I'm going to be so positive about it because I want to inspire people to go on a trail. And it's just, I was just like blown away. And I think that's what people are getting from when I share my stories, because I have such a passion for it. And when they read my book, they're like, I wasn't going to through hike. I'm not even a hiker, but I follow you on Instagram and read your book, and now I want to do it. You know, like it's not that I want you to through hike the AT. I want you to do something out of the ordinary, step out of your comfort zone, do something amazing. And if it happens to be a through hike, do it, man. And that's what happened. I read it. I said, wow, this is amazing. I want to do that amazing thing.
Yeah. Bill Bryson and whoever gave you that book planted a seed in Mr. Mm-hmm. Fabulous. And that seed eventually sprouted and you ended up on the trail. And now through what you've done in your book, you are planting seeds in others and starting that dream for people. So that's awesome. That's fantastic.
Ain't that a beautiful thing? That's a beautiful thing.
100%. Okay. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of Mr. Fabulous's time on the AT. And I especially want to talk about his book, The Unlikely Thru Hiker. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. The John freaking Muir Pod is sponsored by Outdoor Vitals, the ultralight backpacking gear company whose mission is to improve the mental, physical, and emotional health of mankind by facilitating impactful outdoor experiences. Outdoor Vitals creates innovative technical products with confidence-inspiring education that empower outdoor ultralight adventurers. Their focus on performance enables you to live ultralight with gear you can actually be confident with. Whether you're looking for an ultralight sleep system, shelter, or pack, or if you're looking for top quality apparel for the trail, you can find it at Outdoor Vitals. Do yourself a favor. Live ultra light. Welcome back, and we are talking to Derick Lugo, aka Mr. Fabulous, author of The Unlikely Thru Hiker. And I really want to spend some time with you tonight, Mr. Fabulous, talking about your Appalachian Trail thru hike. And I think it is an unlikely hike, right? It's a subject for your book, and I kind of have a sense for it because you've given a few clues. You basically don't have any hiking experience. You haven't put on your backpack fully loaded yet, and you head down to Georgia, and you show up. And you just do it. That is an unlikely, uncommon, rare approach to a long trail thru hike. So, I mean, what were your expectations going into the AT?
Tell you what, for me, it was just the challenge, and I knew I didn't know anything about the AT. I was okay with it, but what I did know was I'm going to get from Georgia to Maine. That's it. That was I didn't have any anticipation of it being amazing or whatever. I didn't even know if I liked hiking. I just walked into it saying, look, I'm on a mission, and I can say I hiked the AT, and that was it. That's all I wanted from it. But within a few days, within a week, I found out that I liked hiking, which was a plus. And then two, that there's no way I was going to finish if I didn't like hiking. I'm going to be honest. And then two, that it was more than just a trail, that it was about the people that I was encountering, and the experiences. I will say this, another thing that did help me was, since I had so much going against me because I had no experience, that I knew I had to keep a positive approach to it. And I had to not necessarily embrace everything, but accept everything that was coming my way. So I knew I was going to be hiking in the rain, cold, maybe snow, and I did hike in the snow. I knew it wasn't always going to be a beautiful sunny day, and I knew it was going to be there was going to be a lot of mountains. It was going to be steep, and at the time, mountains were like, going up was my weakness. You know, even as a runner, I would, every time I hit a hill in Central Park, I was like, oh no, here we go. You know, but once you get your hiking legs, it gets a little easier. But I tell you, I stopped so many times going up Blood Mountain that it was just like I was tasting blood. It was horrible. But it was one of those things where I knew it was going to be, and those things could happen. But, you know, I accepted it, and I'm going to go with it. And that was it.
Okay. Let's go through some stats real quick. What was the approximate start date? Do you know?
I started a couple of days before spring. So a few days. It was March. I want to say it was March 19th. March 19th. Yeah.
Okay. And what year was this?
2012, 10 years ago.
Wow, 2012.
Yeah,
does it seem like just yesterday?
It does. And I have an announcement later at the end, so remind me to give you this announcement that I have. But yeah, it's been 10 years. It feels like it was just happened, especially that when I got off the trail, I quickly started writing about it, and then doing talks. But the book came out a couple of years ago in 2019. But I was sharing the stories and doing talks and writing and revising the book and all that I was reliving it. So I did the trail in 6 months, but I relived it for years afterwards.
Okay. So that was my next question, was 6 months was the duration. So you finished like in September
19, I think it was.
Okay. And how many zeros did you take? Do you know?
Man, I took more zeros than I really wanted to, especially in the beginning. And I heard that in the beginning, people do take more zeros because they're getting used to the outdoors and all that, like the through hiking and all that. And I was like, that's not going to be me. And it was, because I connected with with a group, and they were like, well, let's stay at a cabin, 4 of us, we could split, the amount. And I was like, man, it's raining out. I want to chill in a cabin. So I did more zeros than I wanted to, but I can't even count how many zeros I did, dude.
Too many. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you mentioned getting off the trail and writing about it and talking about it. And I want to see if your experience with your family is the same as my experience with my family. I get off a hike and I come back and I want to show them pictures and I want to show them videos. And we get to a family gathering and I walk through the door and people see me coming and they head the other direction because they know, oh, this is the crazy hiking dude that's just going to talk my ear off about how great it is in the outdoors. And I'm trying to avoid him. I eventually corner a couple of them and I'll share the pictures anyway, but I seem to be a pariah in my family after a hike.
My experience was the opposite. They didn't want me to go on the trail, first of all. And family and friends, they were like, why would you want to do this? Bad things happen in the woods. And in my head, I was like, look, man, this isn't it's not an undiscovered country, like the trail. Like thousands of people at least attempt it. They don't finish it. There's a percentage that do. I think it's like 25% of the people that attempt it actually finish through hiking the AT. And that percentage may have changed. This is what the research I did when I was writing my book. So it's not something that, there's more danger in Brooklyn where I'm from than the Appalachian Trail, So I was like, it's okay. So the reaction I was getting when I got back was incredible, because they went from not even knowing how to pronounce the Appalachian Trail to being experts of the AT. And every time they would introduce me to their friends, they would go, "Hey, Derick, he through hiked the Appalachian Trail," and all of a sudden they know everything about the AT. And then when I started writing about it, like, "Oh, Derick is writing about the AT." And then now that the book is out, like, "Oh, Derick has a book." And so I didn't have to market myself. And it was one of those things where I through hiked, and I'm still going through the experience. And yeah, I was sharing it, and I love sharing it like I do now, but it wasn't the first thing that came out my mouth. And when they would share that, I was almost like, timid about sharing. I was like, "You just shared everything, and do they care?" Like, now I have to jump in and talk about it, and I don't know if they care about it, but people dug it. People really dug it. And it wasn't one of those things where it just came out of my mouth. A lot of times people just came up to me and like, "Yeah, we know about you. You through hike the AT." And I'm like, okay, I dig it. So, and then my brother, who didn't want me to do it, and he was like, "Dude, take a machete with you, because you can take it. You never know. They come in small sizes. You can strap it to your chest." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm not taking a machete with me. There's no way." And he was like, "Look, man, you're gonna get in trouble out there. You don't know what's out there." And then when I came back, he was like, "Oh, if you can do it, I can do it." And he wanted to like do a long distance hike. And so I was like, "Look, let's just do a day hike." And he's like, "No, man, we're gonna do a long hike." And there's a short film called Trail Brothers that the Appalachian Trail Conservancy did. And it's of me hiking from New York City to the Appalachian Trail, which was, 50 miles, Bear Mountain. You go across George Washington Bridge, and we went along the Long Path Trail all the way up to Bear Mountain, Harriman State Park. And my brother was like, "I'm going to do that with you." I'm like, "Dude, I could probably do it in 3 days, but when I did it with him, it took us 5 days. Within the first day, he was dying. He was like sweating. And I told him to wear synthetic, clothes, don't wear anything kind. And he ended up, and I got him a pair of pants, the right pants. And then when I saw him, he was wearing like cotton pants. And I was like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And then it was a hot day. He had sweat. Like, it was just horrible. And he was like, "I don't get what's going on." So it turns out that he doesn't like hiking, but he loves camping. It's like, "I'd rather camp," and like, he can do that. We camped by a lake. He looked up in the stars. He loved it. But I like to work for that. I like to work to my spot. He rather just drive up and here we go, pitch a tent, we good. So
that's right.
Yeah, my family and friends were like, when I came back, they thought I was a superstar.
Yeah, the best views come after the hardest days, right? After the hardest work, that's the best views. And yeah. I'm a little bit jealous of you, Mr. Fabulous, because I think I understand. Well, your family accepts you, and they ask these questions, and I think I know why. It's because I come out just giving it away, just throwing it out at people, and you play hard to get. You play timid, you make them draw it out of you, and it works to your advantage. So I've got a new approach now. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and once you get me started, I can't stop talking about it. So,
well, you're in the right place right now. Then,
cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Hey, one of the things that the trail does to folks is it transforms them. They enter a long trail in a certain state of mind or a certain state of existence, and by the time they finished, something has happened to them. They've been changed. Did you find that to be your experience?
Yeah, I was warned that would happen, and it's funny because I have a quick story about someone asking. We were in a campsite after hiking, and they said, "I hear that the trail changes you. Have you guys experienced that yet? Because I haven't yet." And people answer their own ideas. And I said that I don't think it really the clouds aren't going to open up and a voice is going to say, "Hey, this is your life," and it's not going to happen. It's just a sense that you get, a feeling that you get. And I remember it hit me. Oh man, I don't know. I think maybe a month after while I was on my through hike, something just felt different. I said, "There's something," and I didn't want to lose it. I was afraid to go back to New York, and I didn't go back to New York when I first got off the trail. I just wanted to hold on to that. And the one thing that I know for sure is that my understanding of people, relationships, the way I my perception of people changed when I was on the trail. It went from being a dude from Brooklyn who, you know, this person is coming up to me, they want something from me, you know, when I was on a trail, there's a thing called trail magic where people help you out along the way, because hikers are always hungry. You know, you're burning so many calories, you're not going to replace it. So they leave you food, snacks, water. You know, one of the best gifts, one of the best trail magic is, you know, when there's a heat wave or something, someone leaves a gallon of water and you get to fill up your bladder and stuff. Love that. Or they give you a ride into town, all those things. And when I experienced that, I couldn't understand it. I didn't know what that was about. And my New York mind couldn't wrap my mind around that. And it took a while for me to accept it. And then when I did, I was like, you know what, I had to step away from my New York mindset, the New York state of mind. I had to step away from that and take in what was happening here. And when I did, all of a sudden I felt guilty. I said, why am I accepting this? There's no way I deserve this. I'm the one that put myself out here on a trail. I didn't ask to be out here. And so I was like, what can I give people back? You know, like, I have nothing. I have no money, you know, like, I'm just out in the woods hiking. And I realized that I do have one thing I can give them, the gift that I believe I have. And that's the gift of gab. Like, I can share my story. You know, I'm a good storyteller. And I realized that trail angels, people that were leaving stuff on a trip, people that was day hikers, they love that because they want to know what you're doing. I remember I was on the trail and I was at Harper's Ferry, halfway through it's a psychological halfway point of the Appalachian Trail. And I was eager to get into town because I was going to do a 0 there and I was going to just relax. And I was running there. And then there was a family of day hikers. And as I'm running past them, one of them says, "Are you a through hiker?" And it was like a mom and a dad and small kids. And I really wanted to go into town, but I stopped and I backed up and I started sharing my story for like 20 minutes with them because I had that gift to give them. So I was able to balance it out that way. So on the trail, I felt like meeting people. And another thing I want to share with you is that I would be the last person to get into camp, and people knew that, hey, Mr. Fabulous, he's probably talking to someone on the trail. So you couldn't go by me on the trail without me talking to you, even saying hi. You know, I had to say hi. And that's one of those things that I never did in New York City. Can't do that to this day. You know, once in a while, if someone gives me eye contact, I'll nod. And if they nod back, that's the closest thing I'm going to get to actually having a conversation with them. But on the trail, I had great conversations with people on the trail. So that was one of the biggest things that I got out of it, is that people are awesome, man. People are pretty awesome.
Yeah, we have a close friend who accompanies us on occasional hikes, and his trail name is Buddy because he buddies up everybody. He same thing. He cannot go by anybody without telling them about what the weather's been like the last 2 days, what they can expect in front of them. The whole deal. He will chat you up and be your best friend, and just he is such a good-hearted person. His trail name had to be Buddy.
Buddy, I love it. I hope I run into him.
Hey, did you ever have a moment on the trail you thought to yourself, what am I doing here? This was not a good decision. This is a real low point for me.
Mm-hmm. When I got to the approach trail, 8.5 miles before when approach trail up the steps, and then you go to Springer Mountain. Mm-hmm. There's an arch. There's a famous stone arch, and I remember seeing a picture of it. And then when I got to it, I was the first person there. It was like 7:30 in the morning or something. I was the first person there. And like the store, there's like a gift shop or something in that area. I can't remember what it is. And it was closed. And I stood there and I looked at it and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I have all this gear that I don't know how to use. I was like, I want to go home. I was homesick. I was like, there's no way I can do this. Who do you think? Who do I think I am? And the one thing that got me, quickly as that thought came, it was gone because I had nowhere to go, dude. I had 5-6 months of nowhere to go. And I said, you know what? Just take that first step and just go for it. And that was the one time that, and then that evening where I looked at these hikers and I was like, man, what am I doing? Just that first day. But after that, never, like, throughout my entire through hike, I never thought I would be off. I knew I was going to finish it. I knew this was something I had to do. I was going to finish. But that one day, that was the only time where I was like, dude, I think you made a mistake.
Mr. Fabulous, that's incredible that your low point, your low moment was on the first day. Here you are, a guy from Brooklyn, never hiked a day never did a long trail before, never tried on the equipment. You show up, you have your doubts right at the very beginning. And then 6 months later, you finish. And every day after that first day was not a low point.
Well, let me correct you. There were low points. Like, there's hard days. You know, I got sick. I got like heat sickness, you know, like there was a lot of bad days, hiking in rain that wasn't great. But remember, I mentioned that I try to keep it positive. I had this mantra that I would say and write in journals was peace, love, and all that good stuff. And every time I wrote it, it felt good. Every time I said it, it felt good. I knew I had to keep that positive mindset. That being said, there were some bad days. You know, I've fallen, I dislocated my finger, but during all that time, I knew I was going to stay on the trail. I knew this is where I belong, and I loved the trail. Even during hard, like Pennsylvania, called Rocksylvania, that's what we call it because there's so many rocks, messed up my boots. And I was the guy that was like, yeah, I'm going to hike the entire Appalachian Trail with one pair of boots. And then I got to Pennsylvania, and it just fell apart. The boots just fell off from my feet. They were just gone. It was torn up from like the sharp rocks. So even through that, I kept it positive. In journals, people were like, we hate Rocksylvania. And I was like, look, I don't hate Rocksylvania. It's part of the trail, and I don't hate the trail. I love the trail. I ain't happy about what's going on. I'm not a big fan, but you know, I try to keep it. Like, there was times where there was bugs flying into my eyes and I'm tripping over rocks and I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. But I kept going because at the end I got to camp and I did it. You know, every day was like an accomplishment. You know, there was a milestone coming ahead. And that was the one thing that I always try to do was, okay, what's the next milestone? Where are we going? So I try to get to that point. Because if you think about just going from Georgia to Maine, and in Maine is your goal, you know, you need it's like a goal. Like, if you have a big goal, you got to have little goals to get to that big goal, because that's the best way to get there. You know, it's not about just, you know, it's the journey. It's not just the destination. It's like, come on, man, experience that, get to it. And then I promise you'll get to that spot. Absolutely.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
There you go. You don't swallow it.
Can't.
You can't. And why would you eat an elephant though? I'm a vegan, dude. I'm a vegan.
That's good point. Good point. Hey, I retract the metaphor. Sorry. Okay, we talked about your low point. How about a favorite moment? Can you distill down to one favorite moment on the trail that was just like nirvana?
I would have to say, man, there's so many. You're gonna make me pick one?
Okay. Try to get it to one.
Okay. I would say there was one hike. Oh man, where was this? This was in Maine. It was right before. No, it wasn't in Maine. It must have been in New Hampshire. It was in New Hampshire. I was hiking alone because everyone did a zero in town, and I wanted to hike alone. And it was a wet day, and it was muddy, and I just wanted to get to the summit because I heard the summit, the view was going to be beautiful. And it was cloudy, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get it. It's going to be a hard day. I knew I was doing this by myself, and I was trying to get up a mountain and back down so I can get picked up and go into town and hang out with the peeps that took a zero, those lazy bums that took a zero. And I'm hiking up this mountain. I get to the top, and as soon as and I'm not lying, I swear, I actually recorded this because I was like, no one's going to believe this. As soon as I got to the top, the clouds parted and the sun came out, and I had the best view ever. And the best part about it was that I decided to do this hike, not do a zero, do it alone. I struggled a little bit, and I wasn't sure I was going to get that view, but I got the view. And I sat there, and I remember sitting there. I was like, it was like meditating. I just sat there and I felt the wind blow, and I remember closing my eyes, and I was like, is it going to still be here when I open my eyes? And I opened my eyes and it was there. And I was like, if there's a heaven, this is what heaven looks like. And I tried my hardest to capture it. You can't capture it when you take a photo. I tried, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to capture it with a photo. I'm getting the chills just talking about this. I said, Mr. Fabulous, try to capture the moment. Try to remember this. And when I don't talk a lot about this moment. You got me on this one. And I try to collect myself. And I remember the wind blowing. And at one point, towards the end, I had lunch up there. It started getting chilly. The nice breeze started getting a little bit windy. And I was like, okay, time to go. But that moment I had was perfection. Perfection.
Yeah, it all comes together sometimes. It all just converges into this special magical moment. And it all starts with, should I do it or should I not do it? And you decided to do it, and it came into existence.
Yes. Because everyone did a zero, and they didn't even want to take me to the trailhead. They were like, "You sure?" Like, because we were staying with a hiker's family, and they were like, "You sure?" I was like, "No, I want to get up early and go." And they dropped me off, and they picked me up, and I was like, it was meant to be.
And I have a follow-up to your statement about the picture, trying to capture it with a picture. I had a previous guest on, Jay Wilson, who did the JMT, and he was lamenting the fact that he would go back and he would show pictures to family and friends, and they'd look at the picture and they say, "Oh yeah, that's nice." And he's like, "No, it's not nice. This is epic. This is incredible. It's life-changing." And they look back at the picture and they say, "Yeah, that's nice." And he captured it by saying, and this sums it up perfectly, that is the perfect example of the limitation of 1,000-word pictures, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? The limitations of 1,000-word pictures when you're in million-word locations.
I have a quick story to share with you. So when I was through hiking, I got to Damascus, and there was an older hiker named, what was his trail name? Birdman. His name is Birdman. And older guy saw me, first time we're meeting, and he starts taking pictures of me. And I'm like, what's going on with this dude? And he quickly told me that he met this dude that hiked the through hike the year before. And he asked that guy, if there's one thing you would change from through hiking, what would it be? And the guy said that he took a lot of pictures of views, mountains, trees, grass, dirt, all those things that you're supposed to do when you're through hiking. But he said the one thing he wished he did was take more pictures of the people he encountered. And I knew instantly what he meant, because again, like you said, you can take pictures of a scenery, but you're never going to capture that moment. It's the feeling is inside you. It's not in that photo. It's not in the way it looks. It's in the experience, getting there, how everything comes together, And, but if you take a picture of a person, like, you get a lot more from that. I remember I took a photo of him, and I remember the conversation we had. I remember his trail name. I remember all these things. And I felt like, that's what I want to do. I want to take pictures of the people that really look out for me on the trail, the people I meet, trail angels, all these things. And I feel like to this day, my favorite photos are the photos of the people I encountered on the trail.
Excellent point. Agree wholeheartedly. Mr. Fabulous, what would Mr. Fabulous on top of Mount Katahdin, what would he whisper into the ear of Derick showing up to Springer Mountain?
That's a good one. I would say, don't take the people that you meet on the trail for granted. Because I felt like when I finished, I felt like I wanted to give more to the people I was with. And I said, I wish I would have hiked with these people longer, or I wish, they didn't annoy me. When you're hiking with someone for so long, they annoy you like family. You get annoyed. And I felt like there was one hiker that I love dearly, and we separated. We went our separate ways for many reasons, but one was like I felt like I wasn't doing my own through hike. And I would say to Derick, because I'm Derick when I first started, not Mr. Fabulous, I would say, don't take the people you meet for granted on the trail.
Excellent advice. All right. I hope we've whetted people's appetite for the book, The Unlikely Thru Hiker. There's a lot more of your stories and personality that come through in the book from what I understand. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the book here. And just to introduce it, I want to read the description from Amazon. I'll read a brief description. It says that Derick Lugo had never been hiking. He certainly couldn't imagine going more than a day without manicuring his goatee. But with a job cut short and no immediate plans, this fixture of the New York comedy scene began to think about what he might do with months of free time. He had heard of the Appalachian Trail, but he had never seriously considered attempting to hike all 2,184.2 miles of it. Suddenly, he found himself asking, could he do it? And the book has been well received. I think I told you before we started recording that I had some guests on just last week, and we get to a later section called the Adventure Media Recommendation. And their recommendation was this book called The Unlikely Thru Hiker, written by this guy named Derick Lugo. And I said, oh my gosh, that is fantastic, because the very next guest that I'm interviewing after that episode is Derick Lugo. So, I mean, that is so cool that this book is out there. It's in the hiking community and people are reading it and taking it to heart. And I want to just share one more before we start talking about it. I want to share a review that I found on it, some praise for The Unlikely Thru Hiker. And this comes from David Miller, author of AWOL on the Appalachian Trail and the AT Guide. And he says, forget what you know or think about hiking the Appalachian Trail and experience the hike through the fresh perspective of novice hiker Derick, Mr. Fabulous Lugo, who provides us with a candid and clear-eyed account of a contemporary thru hike. And worry not about the moniker Mr. Fabulous. Mr. Lugo tells his story with engaging humility. His respect for the trail and interactions with other hikers are exemplary. So,
and that dude, I look up to that guy, because if you know AWOL, the guide, the Appalachian Trail guide is, that's his, guide, AWOL guy, and he has a book also. And I met him on the trail during trail days. And then I met him after that doing, I was doing trail maintenance, and we just kept in touch. And for some reason, he would always remember me. I was like, I met him at trail days, and I saw him a month later, and then he was like, hey, Mr. Fabulous, like, oh man, like he's people love him. He's here, he's well known. He's like a celebrity in the outdoors, the hiking community. And for him, so we kept in touch. I sent him my manuscript and I said, you want to read it? And if you can, write an excerpt for it, then that'd be great. And he read it, and he's a writer also. And he was like, there's some typos in here. And I said, yeah, I know. I apologize. I gave you a draft that wasn't edited yet, but he dug it. He really dug it. And he was very hesitant at first to write anything before he even read it, because he said a lot of people ask me to write a review or write something for them. And a lot of times their book doesn't do well, or it's not a good book. So I'm very hesitant. I haven't done it in years, but since we knew each other, it's like, I'm gonna see what I can do. And he dug it and he wrote it, and I was, happy that he did it, and I'm grateful that he thought it was good enough for his words.
That's incredible. Was this your first attempt at a book?
No, I have a bunch of manuscripts that are in my closet somewhere, but it's my first attempt in trying to get a book published, and the first attempt worked. It was the first book that I knew from the beginning that I was going to get published. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just said, I'm going to write this, and I'm putting everything into it, and it's going to get published. I don't know how, but it's going to happen. It's one of those things like we talked about earlier. Everything falls into place when you have the right mindset.
And this is a trail memoir of your 2012 hike.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when people are done reading The Unlikely Thru Hiker, what do you want them to walk away with? after reading that?
Yeah, I want them to understand that it's not just a hiking book. And this is what I get from messages from readers, that they say it's not just a hiking book. It's more than that. And I want people to feel like, not that they can just go out and do a through hike, just going out there and doing 3 miles is great. But this is more of like stepping out of your comfort zone, doing something out of the ordinary and living a dream, just doing it. Living a dream could be scary. This was scary. I didn't know what I was doing, but you just step out of that comfort zone and jump and do it. You never know what happens. Hey, if I would have done this and didn't like hiking and would have gotten on, I would have said, hey man, I did the AT, I tried it and I wasn't feeling it, but luckily I fell in love with it. So, but if I didn't jump in, as scary as it was, if I didn't jump in and do it, then, my life would have never changed the way it has. So that's the thing. I want people just to read it and there's a lot of great stories, and I get a lot of great comments about it being funny and all that. But the lessons are there. This is how I approach everything I do now with my talks, with my podcasts, with everything, is that I want people to be inspired, educated, and entertained. And if all those three happen, then I'm a happy camper.
And are there
get what I did? Happy camper, get it?
Love it. Love it. It's like hiking pole. Happy camper. Nice turn of phrase. Are there some parallels between those takeaways from the book and your themes that you cover in your public speaking?
Yeah. When I have one presentation that I've been doing for years, and I tell people it's a visual presentation of my book. So if you think my book is funny, entertaining, inspiring, that's what the presentation is. Because the reason why I feel like I'm successful with my stories is that I don't want to bore people. Like I understand, especially when I do these talks for high schools and, junior high schools, like I know the attention span is not going to be there. So how do I keep their attention? By having something visual for them to see and having a really interesting and fun story for them. So yes, everything I do, even with our talk here, I try to keep it light, entertaining, informative, fun. This is what I do. And because I'm not going to inspire people by doing it any other way. And this is who I am. This is who Mr. Fabulous is. And it's been working so far, I think.
Absolutely. Hey, where can folks find and order your book?
You can order my book wherever you like to get your book at, the big stores, Barnes and Noble, or even like a small bookstore, Amazon, if you like shopping there. If you want a signed copy of my book, you can go to my website at dericklugo.com and I will sign it for you. And if you want it personalized, then I will do that as well. Just leave me a note.
As soon as we sign off here, I'm going to that website and asking for a personalized copy. All
right, there you go.
Hey, what is next for Mr. Fabulous? What's the next adventure?
That's the big reveal that I wanted to share with you. I asked you to remind me. So last year I attempted to do the long trail, which is 300 miles it's the entire length of Vermont. And I'm going to go back to do that later on this year. But the big adventure, the next one, and I didn't think I would ever do another through hike because, it's been 10 years. I don't even know if I can through hike again, but I would joke around and say, hey, look, if I get some sponsors, if there's a story behind it, because now if I do a through hike, it's not about me discovering the outdoors and learning about it and that it's a challenge. No, it's more than that now. I'm educating people now about it. I have an audience now. People want to know about the outdoors, about through hiking, all these things. And again, I'm a storyteller, so it's not about me anymore. So now I'm teaming up with Hobbies, the footwear company, and I'm going to do the CDT, the Continental Divide, in April. So that's my next big adventure. And then after that, I want to plan it where I can do the long trail. So there's a lot of hiking ahead of me this year.
Yeah, congratulations, Mr. Fabulous. That's exciting news. The CDT, anywhere from 2,700 miles to 3,100 miles, depending on which alternates you take, all the way from Mexico to Canada. I have to admit, I was crossing my fingers. I was hoping you were gonna say it was gonna be the PCT, because me being in Southern California and about 15 minutes from the trail, I was going to make arrangements to be a trail angel when you pass through. But maybe I think once you get the CDT under your boots, you may have that draw to want to be a triple crowner.
And you know what? That has never been a thing I wanted to do. Never. And I always said, if I do another through hike, it would be the PCT. And that was the plan. I was like, if I can get people that are interested to help me along the way, and, but I wanted to do it years ago, not 10 years after Mike. So this will be a 10-year anniversary hike. But almost they're by the CDT, and they were like, do the CDT. And that's the thing, is that I'm going to do it. But then now I did 2. Now it's like, you got to do the PCT. Like, I never wanted to be a triple crowner. So who knows? I will say this. If I do it, I'm not going to wait 10 years. I'll have to do it right away, because I'm not going to wait another 10 years to do another through hike. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
Got it. And I'm not sure what your podcast commitments are, but if you have a chance to take 2 or 3 zeros during the CDT and you want to find a place with some Wi-Fi, we would love to have you come on and tell some stories and give us some updates from the CDT and share with people your progress. Yeah,
that 100%. That's pretty much how I'm approaching this. It's going to be work for me as well. I'm going to do talks, podcasts, signing books at, outfitters, stores, or whatever. So this is going to be more than just your typical through hike, although I will be hiking every day, from sun up to sundown, but it will be some work with me. So yeah, I'm down with that.
Fantastic. You heard it here. He promised he's coming back on. He's going to tell some more stories.
Yep.
All right. Hey, this is the point of the episode where I usually ask for an impromptu top 5 list. And I had in my mind already what I wanted to ask you based on earlier comments. And that is, you started off the AT, I think you said, with 5 books in your pack, or you had 5 books in your pack at some point. Do you remember the 5 titles? What were the 5 books that you had to bring with you, that you were willing to carry that weight on the trail?
I started with, oh goodness, I can't even remember the book I brought. This was 10 years ago.
I know.
The book I brought. I know the book I brought with me. I know one book. Here's a quick story. When you get trail magic, we had the best trail magic. It was breakfast. It was amazing. And a lot of times, at the end, they're like, okay, now that we have you here, I'm like, oh man, here's the religious talk. Like, I'm not against it, but I'm like, oh, you trapped us with food. And you know what? I will always fall for it, because we're always hungry. But it was a great talk. And then they had books on the side. I said, just grab a book if you want a book. And I remember the book. I grabbed the thinnest one, and it was Jesus the Carpenter. And I said, you know what? I'll read it. It's thin. I'll read it. I ended up reading it. I felt like I owed them that, since they, gave me seconds, gave me so much food and all that. I read it. It was cool. It was a thin read. I did have, I remember the one I started with was Kite Runner. The Kite Runner is like a big book. I read also A Game of Thrones. I think it was maybe the first book, because I had just learned about the Game of Thrones on the trail. And I just remember those 3. I can't remember the other ones.
Well, two of those 3 are pretty thick. So, I mean, that's an extra weight there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Fabulous, you know where we are? We're at that point of the episode where I turn to you and ask you for your pro tip insight of the week. What bit of trail wisdom can you share with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better?
Okay. One of the questions I get from people when they find out my story, that I didn't have any kind of experience, they say, hey, you think we can do it where we don't have any outdoor experience? We just go out there and do it? I said, don't go there. I say, first, find out if you like to hike. Find out if you like to camp. Find out if you have a backpack that weighs a certain amount of pounds. Find out if you're able to do this for a weekend. If you can do it a weekend and you're digging it, then do it for a week. Do it for 2 weeks. Then you can go, okay, I want a through hike. But do not do what I did, because what's going to happen is you're going to spend money on all the things you need. maybe do some like mail drops. You're going to plan it all out. Your time, your money is going to be wasted, because as soon as you get on the trail, you're going to be like, what am I doing? Because it's not something that you just go in and do. Everything fell into place for me. I don't think I could do that now. Even with the CDT through hike, I'm planning it now. And I'm trying to lighten my load, and I'm making sure that I get this right, because I'm not going to do what I did with the AT, where I just show up. No, it's not going to happen, because it won't work this time around. I know it. So find out if you like to hike, do the things, then you go out there and do a through hike or whatever you want to do.
Do as I say, not as I do.
There you go.
All right. So there you have it. That's it. This episode is just about in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Mr. Fabulous. I want to thank him for joining us this week. Mr. Fabulous, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
Always on Instagram. Instagram is my jam. I do have a personal Facebook page and an Unlikely Thru Hiker page. And normally when I post on Instagram, it goes straight to my Unlikely Thru Hiker page. So everything that I post there almost every day, I do stories every day. So if you want to find out what I'm doing, if you like to hear me just talk or say whatever, I'm on Instagram, updates on everything, all my talks, everything I do. I'm going to post about this podcast on my Instagram. So Instagram at Derick Lugo.
Okay. Remember to check out the podcast on social media as well. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Mr. Fabulous, you need a TikTok account.
I do have a TikTok account. I just spend so much time on IG that TikTok is just a bit much for me. I got too much going on.
It is a bit much. Yes. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com. Mr. Fabulous, I'm also looking to you to share a recommendation for a book, a movie, documentary, some kind of outdoor adventure media that our listeners can consume and stay connected to the trail. We're calling this our adventure media recommendation. What do you have for us?
I have a good one. Besides the Unlikely Thru Hiker, I read...
That's stipulated, by the way. Stipulated is top of your list. Get yourself a copy of the Unlikely Thru Hiker. But after they get finished with that, what's next?
I would say Alone in Wonderland by Christine Reed. This book is amazing. She's a great writer. In fact, when she reached out to me on Instagram to do like a book swap, we did it. And we linked up and did, it was funny. I was like, let's do a live or something. She's like, well, you got to finish my book. And I have so many books. I set it aside. And she said, you got to finish reading it, or at least start reading it before we do the live. I said, okay. I started reading it, and I was so amazed at how the way she writes is the way I write. She's very sarcastic, not crazy sarcastic, but like her humor is the same humor that I have. And her writing skills are ridiculously good. So get that book, Alone in Wonderland by Christine Reed, an amazing read.
Fantastic. And before we wrap things up, I've got one more segment for you called What Have I Not Asked You that you're dying to tell us about?
Oh, that's a good one.
It's my catch-all, so I don't miss anything.
What am I writing next? That's one of the questions. Like, what's my next writing project? So I have a few of them. I do have a short story that's coming out in a book called Campfire Stories Part 2, Volume 2. But the two big ones are I'm writing a children's book, and I want to have that done before I start my through hike of the CDT. So I'm currently working on that. And I have another big book project after I finish the two big trails that I'm doing. So look out for that as well. I get a lot of messages from mothers that ask if they can read the Unlikely Thru Hiker to their kids. And I say yes, because there's no curses. I make up words that sound like curses, like Son of a Brooklyn Bridge, but I wanted to inspire everyone and kids. And I didn't want to have things that they couldn't read to their kids. They wouldn't be inspired. So, but I want to go that next step and write a children's book. So that's where I'm at right now.
Congratulations. Exciting.
Thanks.
Exciting. Can't wait to read them. That is a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Any shout outs to friends and family, Mr. Fabulous?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to, all right, I'm going to go back to Christine Reed because I feel like she's a big supporter of what I do and I want to support what she's doing. So follow her on Instagram. She's fun and she's got a lot of stuff happening. So shout out to her. And yeah, and if you get my book, you'll learn about the moving village. Shout out to the moving village.
Okay. Hey, if I reach out to Christine Reed and ask her to come on the podcast, can I drop your name? Can you give me a good recommendation?
She'll love it. Yes, I'll reach out to her now and say, hey, you're going to do this podcast. She'll love it.
Done deal. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Always remember the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if Rocksylvania tore the boots off your feet. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.